Jessica Davis, and in this video we'll be talking a little bit about the basics of starting a team to work on issues of housing justice. So first things first, I just want to let everyone know that I am someone who is formerly homeless. That is the term that I use. I always encourage folks, if you are not someone who has been in that situation, do not define for other people what terms they use. So if you don't know at all what terms someone uses, best practices tend to be to use language around housing insecurity or to talk about people who lack shelter. But you will find that there are folks, particularly those of us who have actually lived on the street, who weren't, couch surfing, that the language of homelessness is important. But you will find other folks who are really clear on the fact that for them, home is other people and home is relationships. And because they didn't have a house, those things didn't go away. So really just encourage you to listen to the people who are around you, let them define themselves how they need to define themselves. But I just wanted to let you know that for this video, you'll probably hear me talk about homelessness because that's what I define for myself. So the first thing that I encourage folks to do is really just educate themselves on the basics of homelessness and housing insecurity and housing justice. This is not a topic we learn about in school, so I don't have any expectation that folks would know about it other than, what they've seen on the movies or heard on the news. But it's important to really get information you can trust, to be looking at hard data. One of the things that's often shocking to people is the number of children in their area that are categorized as homeless or houseless. Now, not all of these children will be living on the street. Some will be in shelters. Some are living in cars. Some are couch surfing. Some are, sleeping in the same bed every night. But it's, a situation where they don't have a room to themselves. It might be a family that's 3 families in one apartment. But so that is something that you can find from your local school district. Also, just get the raw data on how many people are homeless in your county, if you can, in your township. Find out, how large the problem is. I also really encourage folks to just do some reading up on the root causes, and to reach out to housing justice organizations in your area. There are probably people already doing this work. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are people who are experts at it, and you can connect with the work that they're doing. But it's important to really just to know the facts before you start. The second thing I'm always going to encourage people to do is to talk with people who are experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity and find out what they have to say about it. Find out what their needs are. And they might not be what you expect. I know one of the things that I experienced very often when I was homeless and when I was housing insecure is that well-meaning people would want to help me, but only on their terms. For myself and for many homeless people, one example is that a cell phone is necessary for you to be able to survive. You need your cell phone to apply for jobs. You need your cell phone to call and find out which shelter has a bed. You need your cell phone to connect with other homeless people in the area and say, hey, guess what? The cops are coming and they're tearing up everyone's tent. Get out, before they come. It is impossible to function in our society as a homeless person without a cell phone. And so people would often be really offended when they would offer to buy me food, I'll take you to the grocery store and I'll buy you $50 worth of food. And I would say, actually, I would rather go hungry. I have to pay my phone bill. And they would think that was frivolous, and they would think that, then you're not really homeless, and, all the terrible things it's possible to think. And so that experience is really demeaning and dehumanizing and frustrating. And it's just something that people experience every day. And so I really encourage congregations to get clear on the fact that being homeless just means you don't have a home. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a poorly educated person. It doesn't mean anything other than you don't have a home. And so to really trust people, to know what they need, and then really start thinking about what things can we address right now, what things are systematic issues that are going to take, a long time to work on, and then start thinking about advocacy. Churches have a ton of power to do housing advocacy. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it later, but I just wanted to make sure that it's something that you include. So looking at the first piece of it, stuff that needs to be addressed right away, really look at your own congregations. It would not surprise me in the least if you have people who are homeless or very housing insecure in your congregation who have said nothing. I did not for a very, very long time, because we're taught in this country that to not have access to wealth is to be a bad person and is shameful. And sort of the worst case scenario of that is being homeless. And so because homeless people are treated so poorly, a lot of the time they're not comfortable telling anyone, even their church, that this is what they're experiencing. So the first thing I would say is cultivate an environment where you have a radical trust, where people in your congregation know that they truly can come to you and say, listen, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. If I don't figure out how to pay my rent, me and my kids are on the street, and that they won't get a response that's like, oh, well, we don't talk about money, or they won't get a response that is shaming, or that, oh, well, I can give you some food stamps when what you need is rent assistance. So we're going to have to get comfortable talking about money. It's impossible to talk about homelessness without talking about money. So that's another thing that churches really need to be able to do. The other thing, as I mentioned, is to be working systematically. And that is a great place to connect with organizations. You will have organizations in your community that do work on homelessness, and you will also have organizations in your community that work on housing justice. And there are lots of ways to plug in. And so again, don't reinvent the wheel. Just go to the people who are already doing it well, and offer your help and support. But I do want to talk a little bit about the advocacy piece. So because our concepts of homelessness are so deeply rooted in our ideas around shame and wealth, churches can do a lot to speak to these issues. People are often surprised to find out how much Jesus talks about money in the Bible. But the fact of the matter is, even in Jesus' time, he was living in a society that was moving towards a more capitalist model. And so money affected everything everyone did every hour of the day. So Jesus talks about it all the time. And so I believe that Christians should be talking about money all the time. We live in a capitalistic society. That's just a fact. And so we need to get comfortable having those conversations, and we need to get comfortable pushing other leaders in the community to have those conversations. One of the ways in which that I have seen that churches can be incredibly helpful is if someone is being unjustly evicted and the pastor of the church shows up with a bunch of people from the church, more times than not, suddenly a solution is found. Suddenly that person is given an extra 2 weeks to get the money together, because people don't want to look bad in front of the church. One of the other ways that can take shape is simply by educating the wider community, in particular lawmakers, around the ways in which the root causes are directly connected to what we believe about people in general, and the worth of people, and the worth of one group of people over and against the worth of another group of people. Churches can also be really active in just drawing attention to issues. If there is a notorious landlord who abuses their tenants, and you've heard the same story multiple times from multiple people, this is how we're being treated and it's not right. Again, the church can really be a force for justice, That might be, in extreme cases, going in person, to see this landlord. In other cases, it might be starting conversations on social media. It might be having conversations with the newspaper, but really just sort of using your power and your voice to elevate the voices of the people directly affected. And so that kind of brings me back around just to the general philosophy that whenever we're doing work with people from a vulnerable population, the people from that population are the experts in what they're experiencing and what they need. And so it's going to be crucial to always center their voices. And so I will send you on your way with an offer to provide assistance, to provide more education, any conversations you might want to have, and just a reminder that we worship a homeless God, and that I think that was intentional, that our God is a wanderer and our God is a God without a place. And so as you do your work, please keep that at the center of your minds and your hearts, and be confident that God has given you everything you need to do the work. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.